So when we click on our texture paint button, the default layer that's added is a color layer, which is the first option type you have here. And a color layer is, or a diffuse layer, is basically just a layer that displays color. So, colored light. So that could be color from our brush strokes, however we might change this, or color from texture images. So if I were to click brush, so we can add a brush here, and I scroll down here and select the concrete here, and press X to increase my brush size, turn off the strength and increase the hardness. So a quick way to add a base layer on things is to select the circle brushstroke tool, which is actually called the anchor, but you can think of it as a circle. Press my paint through button and then click and drag over this Suzanne head to just cover the entire thing like that. And voila, I've got this simple base layer. So this layer's got some issues. There's some like stretching and bad stuff. So what we do is just click on our drawing brush stroke there, which is what that is, and then turn the hardness of our stroke way down so we have a real soft edge. Also, we would want to turn the paint through off because we don't want our strokes painting through. Then we could just go over these kind of nasty areas, and this will just blend right in. Let's go ahead and tap Save My Layers, and what that does is pack all your painted layers into the blend file so that they don't get corrupted or deleted when you save or if something happens. Okay, so let's go over the options real quick for this basic color layer. So first we have the blend type we can change here, which you can't really see much effect of this since there's not another layer below it right now. But if you're familiar with these different blending modes in Photoshop, then you'll probably be familiar with the way they work in Blender. And then of course we can change the layer opacity and the bump value of the color layer. Now we can add individual bump layers by pressing the Add Bump button, but this is just some added functionality to the basic color layer. Now when we click on the Cycles button, you'll see we have quite a bit more options than we do in Blender render mode. For most of these we can't really see the effects unless we're doing a preview render. So let's click the Quick Lights button to make sure that's on, and then press Ctrl B to set a render borders, and then press our render preview button. So here's the basic layer with no effects or anything. Let's kind of go through these different sliders and see what we can do. So we can turn the reflectivity up really high. We can actually turn this up high enough to where it would reflect anything nearby. So I'll click the render preview button off for a second, press my object mode button to hop over to object mode, press Shift A, and maybe just add a torus here, hit G to grab, tap W a few times to give it some smoothing if you're using Sensei Format, just so we have something to kind of bounce off and see. So I'll click back on the Suzanne head, click the texture paint button, and press the render preview button. So the roughness has to do with how the light is spread around. Now you can see the torus donut shape directly on the Suzanne head, and then of course it's just reflecting mostly the quick lights and the black scenery itself. So we could increase the roughness, and the more we do that, it's going to blend back with the original color. So let's turn the reflectivity down, because with the reflectivity up too high, it will pretty much drown out the entire color layer we talked about. So that's all the texture that we painted on there. And we have light emission, so this will basically cause the object to emit light, and as you can see, it's very bright on that torus, and so it would be really bright on any amount of objects surrounding it. And we can lower that down like this. And then we have a transparency slider, which you can probably guess what that will do. Increases and decreases the transparency of the object, which we can't really see anything behind there because there's nothing behind there. So once again, click the preview render button, turn that off, head over to object mode, and click on this torus, and then I'm just going to hit D to duplicate it. Shift D if you're using regular Blender. So I'm just going to duplicate it a few times so we have something to tell that we can see through it. So I'll click back on the Suzanne head, click on my texture paint button, and then press the render preview button again. And now, since we have the transparency up real high, you can see straight through the Suzanne head. And if you'll notice over here in the corner, that's actually part of the Quick Lights rig that is hidden if you're not rendering or previewing and does not show up when you're using cycles. All that shows up from the light source itself is the light onto our object.